This is the HaltingWinter Podcast. My name is Seth Winterhalter, your host today. HaltingWinter is a coaching consulting company that longs to help you solve the real problems. Again, how do you solve the real problems? Well, first of all, you have to discover them. And oftentimes we find that the problems people think they have are not the actual deep-rooted issues. And so what do? We come alongside and we help you discover what are the problems keeping you from operating at peak performance. What are the problems? What are the issues that are keeping you from experiencing a life of passion and purpose in your relationships, in your home, in your community, in your vocation, in all that you endeavor to do. So that's what we do. And so today we're going to try to help with a specific topic. The topic is, how do we present better? And how do we give a public speech? How do we give a presentation? How do we even think about this? If we have something very important to discuss with a spouse, with a family member, how do we prepare in order to be effective in our presentation? And anything that we would speak to, and you could even use the same thing for writing. But I want to address speaking. I come from a long line of public speaking, public performing. I've been performing on stages since I could walk. And so I've learned a lot of this through experience and through assessment of my own. Speaking and performing. And so I thought, here are three things I want to talk about today to help you as you give a presentation. So whatever your audience is, if you have to give a presentation, specifically where crafting a message, preparing a message, speaking a message would be involved, then I want to give you three tips that may help you perform better to actually be successful. So how do we give a effective presentation? Tip number one, know your audience. Before you even start to lay pen to paper to think about the message, I would encourage you to think about, who am I presenting this message to? Before I spend a lot of time crafting that message, because once you start to craft the message, you start to own it, you start to feel it, you're going to start to respond to that. And if you don't have your audience in mind, you're going to have yourself in mind. And the problem with that is you're going to speak and prepare a message to you. Here's the problem. What if you are not your audience? Right? I mean, especially if you want to think about this, if you want to present something to your spouse, the last thing you should do is to present that thing for you to win it over, because you and your spouse are probably not alike. That is why you have conflict over situations, over decisions that need to be made. So you need to think first and foremost about your audience. Now, how can I help you think about your audience? Know your audience. Know not what they need, but what they want. This is probably the biggest thing with presenting, is specifically if you are someone who helps people, right? Maybe you're like me, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're someone who desires to help people. We oftentimes, because we often know the deep-rooted issues, we know what people need to bring the change that they want. But the problem is, we oftentimes will articulate what people need. People do not want to hear what they need. Think about weight loss. People do not want to hear that they need to measure and keep a record of the food that goes into their body. Losing weight is the most simple mathematic equation ever. In fact, let me give you a little secret. You can eat whatever you want and lose weight. You just need to track it, make sure that you understand how many calories you can eat without gaining weight, dial that down by 200, and live away. You will lose weight. Now, there are some other factors that go into that. If you want help, you call me and I'll coach you, figure out you. But here's the thing, no one wants to hear that. No one's going to be enticed by the message of lose weight by tracking your calories and eating in a caloric deficiency. Not attractive. Lose weight by measuring every ounce of food you eat. Not attractive. I need that, but I don't want that. You know what people want? Lose weight by eating anything you want. Lose weight without giving up your favorite foods. Lose weight without getting off the couch. Lose weight. Those are what? Now that sounds like me. Now, you have to know your audience. And you have to know what they want, not what they need. Now, and I think this is where a lot of really ethical, a lot of coaches who know what people really need and know and want to help them transform feel very shady, feel very deceptive, feel very conflicted about speaking to their audience with their wants and not with their needs. Let me just tell you, you have to get over it. You have to get over it, because there are plenty of people selling snake oil that will tell them exactly what they want, and they will not help them, right? There's a lot of nutrition programs right now, and I won't throw any under the bus. Just basically any of them that have you eating predominantly shakes and any kind of food that is not whole food and healthy, whole food and normal food that you'd find in the grocery store. If you're eating a ton of things that come out of pouches that you put water in, you are headed towards disaster. Will you lose weight? Absolutely. But unless you eat that powdered crap for the rest of your life, you will gain all that weight back and more, and you will destroy your metabolism. Proven fact. That we are not meant to live on dehydrated food, because anyway, I won't go into it. There's just so many. But what is it? It sounds great. Just tell me what to do. Make it easy. I can make you lose weight. I can suck all the water out of your body, make you dehydrated, and do all kinds of crazy things to make you get on a scale and go, "Wow, it's working." But when you look in the mirror, it's not really working. And the long-term effects, even if it does work, are going to have you back in the same condition you are. So know your audience. Know what they want. And help them to see what they need. But I would be careful in how much you front load the beginning of your message with what they need, because I think you'll turn them off. You got to invite them on the journey through their wants to eventually get to what their needs. Now, how do you do that? Know your audience. Know their hopes and desires. If you can engage them with their wants, and then through identifying and helping them see their hopes and desires, then bring in their needs, then all of a sudden they might listen. But you have to engage them. You have to know them. You have to know their wants. You have to know their hopes and desires. Here's another thing. Know their fears. Know what they fear so that they will want to take action on your message. So they'll want to listen to the needs. Number one, in preparing to present something that will be effective, is know your audience. Know their wants, not their needs. Know their hopes and desires, and know their fears. Number two, when you're giving a public presentation, you need to know your audience first and foremost. Number two, then you need to know your message. And you need to know your message in light of your audience. So how do you know your message? Well, first off, every message has one big idea. If your message has more than one big idea, you are not prepared to give that message. A lot of people I got to say everything, right? This is, I was in pastoral ministry for 2 decades, and this is where when the youth pastor, right? When the youth pastor gets the pulpit on Sunday, because the lead pastor is taking a vacation. So this is like New Year's weekend, the Sunday after Christmas, whatever. Summer, whatever the summer is that has no one, everyone's on vacation that week. When the youth pastor gets the pulpit, what's the temptation? For them to preach on just everything that has ever been on their mind. Their message has 7 big ideas and 1,700 bullet points. You got to be careful. You got to be mindful. One big idea. Why? Because one big idea has one primary call to action. This is the big idea. This is the problem I'm solving. This is the answer to the problem. And this is what you need to do now to answer that yourself. One big idea. Think about this. Let me help you with a picture. I want you to think about the most beautiful sunset. What is the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen? Think about that, right? The sun is going down. It's just painted the sky with colors, and the colors are more vivid, more vibrant, more present to your eye. Why? Because there's clouds in the air, and those clouds have captured those colors and given shape to those colors. So a good sunset has the sun, it has clouds, and it has color. Three things: sun, clouds, color. Your big idea is the sunset. It has sun, clouds, and color. It doesn't have the water, although the water might be there and the water might catch your attention. But guess what? If you bring in the water, now all of a sudden the water's the thing, and how the sun is sparkling off the water, and how the dolphins are dancing, and now it's not the sunset, now it's the water. And it's not about the boats on the horizon. Oh, because now it's the boats. Now my eye is off the sun and off the colors and off the clouds, and now it's onto the boats. And now I've drifted away from the big idea. It's not the sand in between my toes. It's not the beauty of the beach. It's not the wind in my hair. It's just the sunset. It's the sun. It's the clouds that are right in front of the sun, and it's the colors dancing off those clouds because of the sun and its glory. One big idea, and the supporting points keep you rooted directly to the big idea. They're not subpoints that are drifting us off to other ideas and other scenes. One big idea, 2 to 3 points that drive home and are connected directly to the big idea. And then there's a call to action. Your message will not have an effect unless it has a call to action. Now, that call to action could be many things. It could be believe this. It could be respond in light of this, right? How are they responding? How are they taking action? What are you calling them to? It cannot just be information, because information doesn't change us. Information that we then put into practice changes us. So you have to know your audience. What steps do they need to take? If I'm giving a presentation at work, I want them to have buy-in and ownership. I want them to see how each department then is supposed to act accordingly. Sales team has to sell this idea and this alone. Their marketing team needs to brand to this idea and this alone. The product needs to be created and fashioned to this idea and this alone. We're all rowing in the same direction. And it's clear because it's been boiled down to one big idea and a few supporting points that are directly connected to the big idea. And now we have a call to action. And that call to action is clear, it's simple, it's direct. It's not multiple calls. It's not a handful of possibilities. It's direct, it's clear, it's just, here it is. Take it, do it. So how do I give an effective public presentation? Number one, know my audience. Number two, I know my message. That's the other thing. If you have a big idea with a handful, 2 to 3 supporting points, how do you forget that? You can do it without notes. It's there. It's just so easy to then practice that and memorize that. You should remember now, a big idea is the sunset. And the sunset has 3 components: the sun, the clouds, and the colors. The sun, the clouds, and the colors. That creates a sunset. And it's beautiful. And the call to action is, tonight you need to see the sunset. Go find the sunset. Find a spot to take in the sunset and notice the sun, the clouds, and the colors. Go. Know your audience. Know your message. Finally, tip number 3, know yourself. Know what your strengths are. If your strength is storytelling, then weave storytelling into your presentation. Tell it as a story. If your strength is statistics, then use statistics. If your strength is whatever that, what is your strength when it comes to knowing your audience, knowing your message, getting your message across? Like, what are you passionate about? The more you can identify with your audience, the more you can identify with your message, the more you will communicate that in a way that people will listen. So know your strengths. Be honest about your strengths and make sure you're leaning into your strengths when you give that presentation. Are you funny? Do you create endearment through, it's easy for you to create sympathy and empathy and emotion? What is it? What is your strength? Lean into that strength when you give a presentation, but also be aware of your weaknesses. If you're not funny, don't tell jokes. If you're not comfortable with a lot of statistics, and if you're not comfortable with if you don't jive on a lot of like information, like I'm not the researcher, you probably don't want to go down that path, because you could start to bumble over yourself. You could start to, right? You don't want to put yourself into places where you'll appear uneducated, weak, unknowledgeable. You want your presentation to have ownership. And so lean into your strengths. Lean into your strengths. And this is where, again, less is more. The more you cut from your message to get it down to the big idea, the main points, and the call to action, trust me, the stronger it will be. We're tempted to believe the more we put in there, the more we'll be able, and, well, my audience is diverse, so I need to speak to all these points. No, you don't know your audience enough then. Boil it down to the commonalities of your audience. Don't try to hit every unique specific thing about your audience. Boil it down. Everyone there has connected wants. What are they? Everyone there has connected hopes and desires. What are they? Everyone there, if you boil them all down, come up to the same couple of fears. That's what you speak to. Know yourself. What are your strengths? Be honest. And lean into those. Make sure those components, your strengths, are a part of your messaging. Know your weaknesses. Know your weaknesses. Take those components out of your message. Don't lean into that. And finally, know this. Every strength has a weakness. So be careful of leaning too far into your strength so that your message becomes about you. I love telling stories. I love making people laugh. I have to be careful because my entire presentation could turn into a comedy sketch. That is not the point. Your strength may be analysis, and you may be able to go really deep in analysis and statistics, but you may present those in such a way and you may give so much data that it puts everyone in your audience to sleep. Know your audience. And don't just speak to one person, speak to the whole. Look at the whole and really think what want speaks to this whole. What hope and dream and desire speaks to this whole. What fears speak to this whole. And now I go, in light of what I'm trying to get across, in light of my call to action, and maybe you reverse engineer your speech or your presentation, your slide deck, whatever you're preparing. What action do you want to call them to? Okay, now in light of their wants, their hopes, their fears, what is the big idea then? And what are the central supporting points that would lead them to the call to action I want them to take? And what are my strengths? How am I going then to tell this story, to give this presentation? If it's stats, how do I make those stats? How do I put those up in the presentation to make them compelling? How do they speak to people's wants, to their hopes, to their fears? So, if you need to give a presentation to your spouse, to your team, to a group, 3 things. Number 1, know your audience. Number 2, know your message. Number 3, know yourself. If we can help you, I love coaching people on how to do public speaking. I love helping people put together public presentations. If we can be of help, hit us up, HaltingWinter.com. Go there. We'd love to do a free assessment of what's going on in your life and see if we can help. Until next time.